Guys, I'm Alec. I have the honor and the privilege of presenting first for you guys today on the stock market. This is my fund, as you see, the Wolves of Neuro Incorporated. Hopefully you guys pay attention, learn something about either the history of my stocks or how they performed or something about the market in general. If you guys have any questions, I politely ask that you hold it till the end. All right, so let's get started. This is my portfolio. From the start, I knew I wanted to have a very diversified portfolio in different sectors. So here we see Lockheed Martin is a defense company. First Solar is a solar energy, renewable energy source company. We have CBS, a pharmaceutical company. Then we have Amazon, a tech company. And finally, Goldman Sachs, which is a financial company. So let's talk about the history of Lockheed Martin. In 1912, Glenn L. Martin established the Glenn L. Martin Company in Los Angeles, California. Right when he established this company, he built the first plane of Lockheed Martin out of his garage. And it's funny, you think of all the great companies that have started right out of a garage. And this original plane was built with bamboo and silk right after the Wright brothers. And this is something that always stuck with me. I like that Lockheed Martin has this innovative spirit ingrained. Then the World Wars and the Cold War. Lockheed Martin really took off during the wars in the 20th century that we were involved in. Mainly the World War I, World War II, Vietnam War. We helped Lockheed Martin supplied a lot of weapons, and particularly in the Cold War, when we were competing with Russia to get out into space, because Lockheed Martin actually has an aeronautics division, which involves in space travel and trying to get up, and they partnered with NASA. So Lockheed Martin helped on the space front. On March 15, 1995, there was a giant merger between Martin Marietta and Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed at the time, which were the two biggest, the second and third biggest, American defense contractors. Now Lockheed Martin is the biggest defense contractor in the world. Today it's the largest defense contractor. As I said, it has 4 different divisions: the aeronautics division, the missiles and fire systems, the space department, and the missile systems. So why did I buy Lockheed Martin? The big thing with Lockheed Martin is, I didn't mention it before, but it's their F-35. They have probably the best fighter jet in the whole entire world. It is the most fuel efficient, it is the fastest, and everyone goes to Lockheed Martin to buy this jet. And the reason I bought Lockheed Martin is because I recognize that right now the world is very unstable. You look at places like Russia, Russia's rising. You look at the Middle East, there's a total destabilization, particularly in Syria right now. And the big thing with Lockheed Martin is right now, a lot of different nations are going through a peace through strength approach, meaning that nations will try to bulk up their military, so their adversaries will see this and their adversaries will then be forced to bulk up. So even different nations like Israel, Iran, Russia have all been buying F-35s from Lockheed Martin, which has been great for business. The second big thing is the rise of Donald Trump. At the time, like many of you guys, I didn't think Donald Trump would be the next president. But I knew as a Republican nominee, he was voicing his opinion on the world stage, and he was basically saying, he said, look, the United States has a depleted military, a depleted army, and so he kind of voiced his opinion, he voiced this, and it resonated with a lot of people, and now that he's president, he's willing to institute huge defense spending, and so this is going to be great for Lockheed Martin, because Lockheed Martin is the #1 contractor with the United States. Lastly, Lockheed Martin issues a very solid dividend at 2.7% average for their yield, which is much better than the average about 2.0 for the S&P. Let's look at the performance for Lockheed Martin. We see that there are 2 major rises. The first one was around mid-October. The third quarter earnings report revenue surged 14.8% from the previous year, and investors love seeing that huge surge. And the reason for such a big surge, like I said before, I believe it's because of the instability the world is currently facing. Next, we have the election of Donald Trump. Like I said before, he's willing to institute huge defense spending, huge military spending, and Lockheed Martin's the #1 contractor, so this makes sense. In total, I bought Lockheed Martin for $245.79. I bought 83 shares of the company. I sold it for $267.62. And I made $1,811.89. My next company was First Solar. First Solar was founded in 1990 by inventor Harold McMaster as Solar Cells Incorporated. And then in 1999, it was purchased by True North Partners LLC, who rebranded it as First Solar Incorporated. They were the first to produce 1 gigawatt of solar energy, which was a big deal, and now they're producing over 12 gigawatts a year. and they're the world leader in photovoltaic, PV, different energy systems, and solar energy solutions. The big thing with First Solar, and a big reason why I bought it, first before I go into this, is I truly believe that solar energy, renewable energy, is the future. What I didn't see is that oil prices really stayed low, so people weren't willing to turn to that alternative energy source. But I believe in the future, when we have a government that's willing to offer subsidies, we could see First Solar take over the market. So that's what I was talking about right here with Hillary Clinton. So like many of you, I believe Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president of the United States back in September. So Hillary Clinton was seen as a very environmentally friendly president, and I thought that if she was the president, she would institute a lot of put in place corporate subsidies for different solar energy and renewable energy resources. So if she put in a corporate subsidy, it would make the cost of these solar panels much cheaper, which would be more attractive to different consumers versus the cheaper energy sources right now, which are oil and coal. Second, I talked about the instability before with Lockheed Martin. I also think the instability in the Middle East, particularly like in places of Saudi Arabia, this could lead to a rise in oil prices. And the last thing, which is pretty interesting, that I really liked about First Solar is that it's a very vertically integrated company. If any of you are like APUSH fans out there, you remember Andrew Carnegie. And so they control the grid integration, the plant control, the engineering, and all the development. And I like seeing that as an investor just because I know they control all modes and methods of production, and they don't have to outsource and spend a lot of money on stuff like engineering. So let's look at the performance of First Solar. First Solar tanked. It was my worst stock by far. It reported for its third quarter earnings a drop of nearly 46% in revenue compared to the corresponding year. And I did some research into this, and the reason why it dropped so much from a year-by-year basis is because this year there were a lot of Chinese solar energy companies in China, and they were able to produce for a much cheaper price than First Solar was. And so they were able to produce for a much cheaper price. People weren't willing to go and buy First Solars, and also China overproduced. And so there was a shift in supply to the right, which caused prices to drop. And the big thing is that China has very cheap labor, places like Vietnam, China, so it's hard for US companies to compete with these cheaper markets. So I think we need some subsidies need to be issued. We're probably not going to see them under this administration, so if I had advice for you guys, I'd think about maybe shorting First Solar. I bought it at $39.09. I bought 511 shares of the company. I sold it for $30.15, and I lost $4,568.34, so not my best stock. All right, now it's one of my personal favorites, although not for this project. It's CBS. The first CBS store was in Lowell, Massachusetts, and it was started by these two brothers, Stanley and Sidney Goldstein. Does anyone here know what CVS stands for?
I don't.
It stands for Customer Value Stores, but now they say it's Convenience, Value, and Service. So kind of stands for two things. It's a trick question. In 1922, CVS was sold to the Melville Corporation, and today there are over 9,600 locations and 30,000 pharmacists. So what were the reasons for me buying CVS? A couple reasons. First off, it's a very stable blue chip, especially in times of uncertainty. It's relatively inelastic. Many people aren't going to turn away from medicine, even in bad times, to other alternatives. And also, it's not a multinational company. So a lot of people might be confused, right? Like, why would I like a company that's not multinational? It probably sounds pretty attractive to an investor if they say, oh, we have locations in London, in China, in France. But the reason I didn't want a multinational corporation is because I wanted to bet on the U.S. economy. And when I bet on CVS, I was also betting on the U.S. economy, in fact, because I didn't want a large-scale pharmaceutical company like a lot of the ones you guys own that would fluctuate with changes in currency. A lot of these different pharmaceutical companies, when there's a change, when there's fluctuations within currency, these companies would change. But CVS relies just on the revenue in the United States, so they aren't affected by the global world stage, which I said is very unstable. They also have a very good corporate structure with an excellent shopping experience. I'm a frequent visitor in Quaker Ridge. It's an awesome time, so I really like the company from within. I thought it'd be a good idea to invest. Let's look at the performance. It wasn't a good idea to invest. I'm getting killed with these earnings. As you see here, CVS posted their third quarter earnings. The main thing with the third quarter earnings of CVS is that it had a very weak outlook, and when a company has a very weak outlook in their earnings, investors do not like that. It's not a promising promise for the investors. And when I did some research, it said that CBS speculates that 40 million subscriptions are going to turn over to competitors like Walgreens. So there's some fierce competition within the pharmaceutical industry right now, and CVS is not doing well with that. And this is also compared to Walgreens right now. You see how there's a little bit of a rise after the Trump election. I thought that would happen with CVS because he would back off on some of the pharmaceutical companies with the regulations. That didn't seem to happen. The competition was too stiff for CVS. I bought it at $90.56. I bought 220 shares of the company. I sold it for $77.62, and I lost $2,846.06. I know you're thinking, where am I going to make my money? It's coming, don't worry. Next, Amazon. Amazon launched in July of 1995, originally as an online book retailer. In 1997, Amazon had its initial public offering with a market cap of $438 million. And now in 2015, Amazon got to celebrate its 20th birthday with a market cap of over $245 billion. Now it's well over $300 billion. Amazon leads the way in investing in research and development. They spend over $13 billion annually on R&D. And what I like about this so much, and I'm going to talk about this with cloud computing too, is that the CEO and founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, who is a complete visionary, when he first founded Amazon and when it first had its IPO in '97, he basically went to Wall Street and he said, look, our margins are probably going to be razor thin tight for the first couple of years. I don't want to worry about profiting. I just want to worry about growing my company and pursuing my vision. And Wall Street looked at him like he was a little crazy, but they said, okay, you do you. And what actually ended up happening is he was able to go pursue all these crazy visions. But in 2002, Amazon established a separate cloud computing industry, and they're able to bring in right now over $10 billion annually. So he was able to find this alternative revenue stream while still being able to pursue all his crazy visions. And that's something investors love with Amazon, and that I particularly love with Amazon. This is an interesting video. Do I have time to show it? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just some information. I talked how Jeff Bezos is a visionary and Amazon's moving towards the future. They actually just released this video about a project they're doing. This is where some of their R&D money is actually going.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
So this is just another example of how you have this visionary Jeff Bezos, this revolutionary company, moving forward with a lot of their R&D money, moving towards seeing the future. And a lot of people will look at the PE ratio of Amazon and a lot of these other tech stocks and say, wow, this is ridiculous. At one point, Amazon was over 300 with their PE ratio. But the thing with Amazon is that a lot of people recognize it's moving towards the future, and it could be the future of our economy, especially with the new economy. So people are able to see that and identify that, and that's why its PE ratio is so high. Excuse me, so high.
Alec, could I present your
Oh. What were my reasons for buying Amazon? Like I said before, CEO Jeff Bezos is a true visionary. It's hard to get that. There are only a couple of them out there. Money into R&D. They spend a tremendous amount of money into their research and development, which I personally love. And the last thing is with the new economy. I believe that with the current holiday, with Thanksgiving, with Christmas coming up, that money going into the new economy, online retailers would be much higher than speculated versus the brick and mortar stores. And I mean, if anyone wants to buy something on the new economy, Amazon is the place to go. It's the most reliable, it's the safest, it's the easiest. So that's why I thought Amazon would be fairly prosperous. Was not the case. Two big dips. First, Amazon third quarter earnings. I'm getting killed with these earnings, like I said before. Investors didn't like how Amazon was spending so much money. They said Amazon was back to their old days with tremendous spending. And I said before how Amazon spends on all these projects and their R&D and stuff like that. So you can kind of see how they're spending a lot of money, but still investors did not like that at all. The second big dip was post-Trump election for a couple of reasons. First of all, Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, as well as Amazon, and Trump don't have a very good relationship with one another. At one point, Trump threatened to use antitrust busting laws, but that's not going to happen, or else this would be going way lower than it is right now. Some other quick info about this is there was a lot of sector rotation going on. Money was taken from from tech stocks and placed into the pharmaceutical industry and placed into different finance stocks. So there's a lot of sector rotation, which I think eventually is going to balance out for Amazon. And lastly, Trump has this anti-globalism approach to things. I don't think he's going to carry that through. He's going to be a traditional Republican president, but still for global tech companies, they don't like the sound of that. So I bought it at $816.11. I bought 24 shares of the company, and I sold it for $240.34. I lost a total of $1,818.48. Okay, it's time for my last stock. This is Goldman Sachs. I took a bullish approach on Goldman Sachs from the beginning, and it paid off. This is some of the history. In 1848, Marcus Goldman, an immigrant from Bavaria, left everything, left his teaching job, came to the U.S. to pursue his vision to come to the land of opportunity. He started a small business that helped other small businesses access capital, originally in a small office, and now we all know where Goldman is today. So with the Great Depression in '29, Goldman got hurt really badly, just as almost every industry within the American economy at that time. But they were able to get out of it by helping the U.S., and they gained a good relationship with the U.S. government by helping the United States finance some of its wars in the 20th century, just like Lockheed Martin helped. And then in 2008, Goldman became a bank holding company so it can access federal funds more easily. And lastly, the Goldman Sachs Group is a leader in global investment banking. What were the reasons that I bought Goldman Sachs? A couple reasons. First of all, I wanted diversification in my portfolio. Thought it'd be good to grab a finance stock. They're also doing well with historically low interest rates. Interest rates benefit banks a lot of the time because banks make a profit when there's a higher interest rate. It's still doing well. And then this last thesis that I have is kind of interesting. It's with mergers and acquisitions. So about Goldman, a lot of the people at Goldman, if you're an investor at Morgan, I'm an investor at Goldman Sachs. That typically means that a lot of the times you pitch mergers and acquisitions to different companies, into different businesses. And so the corporate tax rate in the United States right now is 35%, meaning that a lot of U.S. businesses would go abroad and would try to set up a merger or an acquisition with a foreign company to escape to a tax haven. And that brought Goldman Sachs in business. But now Trump is talking about lowering the corporate tax rate to around 15%, which in fact would be lower than a lot of European countries. And if this is lowered to 15%, we might see some European countries try to come to the U.S. and set up these, tax havens, whatever you like to call it. And this would give a lot of business to Goldman Sachs because they would be the ones setting up the mergers and the different acquisitions of foreign companies coming to the United States. So this presents a big opportunity for Goldman. Let's look at their performance. This is compared to the Dow, and Goldman carried the Dow. The Dow was at a record high, and Goldman spiked. Goldman's the reason my portfolio wasn't down probably $10,000. So you see Trump winning the election, huge boost. Trump plans to, deregulate the financial industry, and finance companies love that. A big thing too, people were worried at first that Trump would be seen as anti-globalist and would be different, but the people he's surrounding himself with and his, economic advisory team, ex-CEOs of big banks, a lot of Wall Street influence in there. So Goldman is not worried about the Trump election. They think it's going to be a typical Republican president. I bought it at $162.89. I bought 122 shares of the company. I sold it for $223, and I gained $7,377.92. So thank you very much, Goldman Sachs. LOL. The overall performance of my portfolio, you see, it's right here. It took a huge dip and then a steady incline at the top. The huge dip was when all the third quarter earnings were coming out, and I told you I got hit with the earnings, particularly with Amazon, with for solar. For Amazon, for solar, and for CBS, I got hit really badly. So this is a huge dip coming here when the earnings were released. But then I was able, this is when Trump won the election between week 6 and week 7, and Lockheed Martin and Goldman Sachs really carried my portfolio up, particularly Goldman. So I was able to end off right about $100,000 where I started. This is my final portfolio value is $99,956.19. Sorry for that. And I lost $43.81. So I'm sorry, Uncle Vlad. Tried my best. Thank you guys very much for listening to my presentation. Hopefully you learned something new. If any of you guys have any questions, please raise your hand. I'll call on you one at a time. Yeah, Amelia.
So for CVS, like I always thought that CVS was kind of the leader, like compared to Walgreens. But clearly that wasn't the case with your portfolio. So why did CVS do so poorly and Walgreens kept on increasing?
So CVS did so poorly with the third quarter earnings, which I talked about before, because within, I don't know the exact reason why. I think it's because Walgreens, I didn't look into Walgreens' investments, but I think Walgreens just merged with a smaller pharmaceutical company, and that merger together was able to create consumer influence. So now a lot of consumers, 40 million, were turning away from CVS to Walgreens. And like I said before, whenever there's competition within an industry, especially when a certain business is threatening to take 40 million prescriptions away from CVS, that's not going to go over well with CVS. That answers the question. Yeah, Mr. Green.
Well, your portfolio is a perfect case for diversification. Had he not been diversified, where he had a couple stocks like CVS and Amazon go down, and Lockheed and Goldman Sachs go up, he would have, as he said, lost 10,000. So it's a real case for diversification. My question for you, Alec, is if you had to pick one of your 5 stocks for the next 10 years to own, which would it be and why?
That's a good question. I would probably say for the next 10 years, First Solar is risky because solar energy is always risky. I'd say either First Solar just because I believe that solar energy is the future, but I'm not sure it's going to overtake that industry unless we see either oil prices rise. But I think oil prices will rise due to instability in the region. But there are so many different solar companies. There's a lot of competition, like I said before, so probably not for solar. Amazon's always pretty interesting. Even now, Amazon dropped a little below. Its PE ratio is down from 300 to about 150, so it's more reasonable to invest now. I'd probably say Amazon, just because I really like Jeff Bezos' vision for the company. I think tech is the future. Even look what they're developing now with Amazon Go and Amazon Echo and these drones. And he's always moving towards the future. And I think Amazon's a great company to invest in, especially with Bezos leading the way.
All right, thank you. Let's give it up for Alec.